Hi, everybody. Welcome so much to the live stream. We're so excited to have you guys here today. Thank you for joining us on this awesome Friday, the 1st of May. Crazy bananas that it's already May. I'm shocked I'm still able to keep track of time, but thank you guys so much for joining us. We're excited to have you guys here. For those of you who don't know, my name's Mikaley. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events at Tattered Bookstore, and you are in the right place if you're here to watch a live stream with graphic novelist Richard Fairgray, and it's going to be so much fun. We're going to have a great time. I want to give you a couple of quick updates about what's going on at Tattered Cover. Not much has changed. We know that the stay-at-home order at Colorado has lifted to a safe-at-home order, but the stay-at-home order for Denver is still in place. So we still are not doing curbside pickup. We're doing online orders only, which you can order from our website, tatteredcover.com, and we're happy to have you guys do that with us. And you know, so many books on there, and we're happy to help in any way that we can. Our web store is open Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Mountain Time to Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Mountain Time to Saturdays at 5 p.m. And what that means is that gives us a little bit of time to catch up on the orders that we've been getting, and we've been getting real caught up on those. So thank you guys for your patience and your understanding as we're doing that. And just a couple of more live stream events that we've got going on. We've got a full calendar next week, Monday to Friday, guys. It's going to be great. Monday is adult author Jennifer Ware. We have a nonfiction book, Neil Shubin, who's doing Some Assembly Required about DNA. He's a paleontologist, so that's cool. And we've got, on Wednesday, we have Amy Meyerson with The Imperfects. We have the Bookshop Band with a live concert at 1:30 every single Friday. They do a live stream on Facebook from the UK, and they do original songs all based on books, and they do their recommendations. So you should check that out as well. And I just, once again, want to say thank you guys for joining us. There is still a lot of turmoil and uncertainty and hardship, but this is a moment where we get to come together and enjoy things that we love, which is storytelling and books specifically in that format. And we really can't thank you guys enough for your continued support. And this is something that we really believe at Tattered Cover, is that art is essential. And it's sometimes the very first thing to go when we get in these crisis situations. And yet it's the thing that we're relying on right now through movies and TV, books, crafts. It's art all the way around. And Tattered Cover wants to make sure that as long as that we're here, and as long as that we're this community space, that we're able to provide a platform for authors of all kinds and bring their stories into the light, so that you guys can enjoy them and share them. And that's really what we're doing here. And we just want to celebrate that with you and say thank you again for joining us. And so we want to make sure that you are reading or listening, or doing art in any form and observing stories in any form that's that way. That is your way to do that. And Tattered Cover may not be a physical community space right now, but we're happy to have an online one that we can share with you, a virtual one. And we're going to share that tonight with this really amazing artist, storyteller, graphic novelist that we have here today. I want to tell you a little bit about Richard. He is first and foremost a comic creator. He's been that since he was 7 years old, and that's probably never going to change. The problem is that Richard gets bored easily. And so now he also does picture books and screenplays and bad animations. And as he says, curates the most underappreciated Twitter account on the whole internet. He's produced some 200 comics, everything from graphic novels to ongoing series like Blastosaurus and the daily comic strip Fight Crime. We are here celebrating the release of his newest graphic novel for middle grade readers, Black Sand Beach, Are You Afraid of the Light? And it is my honor to welcome Richard Fairgray. So I'm gonna bring him on right now and turn on his video and microphone. Here we go. Let's ask him to start the video and unmute him.
Hello.
Through? Hello, Richard, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you popping in again.
Well, I'm really happy that I got enough of a chance to get away from the camera after clicking OK, so that you didn't just get that big forehead close.
Just right here, yes.
It's the joy of webcam placement, is to make all of us notice the either wrinkles or grease, whichever it's going to be.
Freckles, pimples, whatever the blemishes are on our face. Yes, I completely agree. For me, it's a bunch of redness. I have to make sure that all my camera settings are right so I don't look like a tomato. But So we're excited to talk about Black Sand Beach. Are You Afraid of the Light? Which you have. Yay! Look at it. It's so pretty. I love the, oh gosh, your coloring on that cover is awesome.
Thank you so much. This is my favorite thing, and no one ever seems to notice that the ocean is full of ghosts.
Yes.
Because yes, this is probably the most misleading cover of all that I've ever done, because at no point in the story do they ever stand on a pier.
No, that's true. They don't. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Black Sand Beach?
So Black Sand Beach is all about this boy, Dash, who is stuck at his family's terrible beach house for the summer, with his father, who's a massive goober, and his stepmother, who's incredibly unpleasant, and he's pretty convinced quite stupid. And his cousins, Eleanor and Andy, who are, Andy is like bottled chaos, and Eleanor is like cool but weird. Like, you know, she just has that, like, there's something creepy going on there vibe. Fortunately, he gets to bring his best friend Lily with him. And so it's going to make it almost bearable, as long as he doesn't run out of books to read or hair product to use.
Yes.
Now, first day there, he hasn't been there for 6 years. He hasn't been there since he was 6 years old, and on his first day, he sees this old lighthouse that has apparently not worked for 100 years. That night he wakes up, hears someone whispering his name, and he looks out the window, and the lighthouse is on. And it's not just on, it's blinking and changing direction as if it's looking for him. So then it becomes this mystery of, like, one, why does the beach know his name? What has gone on there before that he doesn't remember? And what is in the basement of the lighthouse that is after him?
Dun, dun, dun.
Like, I wrote this, and I spent a lot of my summers as a kid at an actual haunted lighthouse, which was a lot of the inspiration for this. But when I was writing this, at my office, there was also a haunted lighthouse in the complex. And I was staying there until 4 a.m, and there's this weird red light that glows through the whole room from there's a replica of a cruise ship outside my office window, and it is all lit up with this globe on top of a huge mast, and it glows red all night. But this eerie red glow, and knowing that there's a lighthouse at the back of the complex that is actually haunted, and I'm writing about a haunted lighthouse and scaring myself. Super fun.
Meta.
I tried to get an office in the haunted lighthouse, but there's a TV show about ghost hunters that have their production office there, and they will not give it up.
Dang it. Well, I mean, that seems appropriate, I guess, for them, but your purposes seem way cooler, in my opinion. Oh. But you talked a little bit about what my first question was going to be, was where did this inspiration come from? Can you talk a little bit more about that haunted lighthouse from your childhood and how that curated into this story? Okay, so
here's the true story, and there's only a couple of big differences between me and how I behaved and how Dash behaved. We used to spend our summers at this beach house that my father and my aunt had built, so it was not very good. It was on poles, and it would shake, and every summer there would be a cattle stampede as all the cows would move from one farm to the other, and they'd run under our house through the night, and would all just, there's a lot of weirdness to this place. And this is back when I lived in New Zealand. And about 7 miles, my light just got significantly brighter, like, out of nowhere.
Okay, if your house is haunted now, like, I'm gonna shut off the call because it's gonna come through the video.
My last house was haunted, and it was a terrible house. And the hardest part about leaving there, and we had a horrible landlord, terrible house, it was falling apart. But when we were leaving, I kept writing down the address that we were moving to and leaving it in places that I'd seen ghosts, and been like, guys, if you want to come with us.
You're a very friendly homeowner. Well, welcoming to the ghosts.
I firmly believe that, like, unless you see a ghost who was mad when they died, or, like, if you see a ghost in, like, a Confederate uniform, he's probably not super chill. But if you just like a regular ghost, he's like, especially, I live in Hollywood. Anyone who's died with unfinished business in Hollywood, it's that they didn't get enough attention. So they're delighted. So anyway, so there was this lighthouse, it was like 7 miles away down at the end of the peninsula. and we would ride there on our bikes. Back when I knew how to ride a bike, turns out you can forget. And one night, my cousins and I and my sister, and I think maybe my stepsister and stepbrother. It's hard to remember because there are a lot of children in my family coming from all different places.
Sure.
So it's difficult to remember who was there for which terrible event. But we got stuck there by the tide, and we could have gone back through the woods, but at night the woods are really dangerous because tourists used to come in and drive their four-wheel drives through the woods and smash down all the plant growth and things. So we would dig big holes to trap their cars. And so that was dangerous because our own traps could backfire on us in the dark. Anyway, so we got stuck there and we're like, let's just stay in the lighthouse. We knew it was kind of creepy. We knew there was like a basement that we would never go into. There was just a vibe to the place. Actually, the first time I ever went in there, I remember walking in, I remember feeling something weird, and the next thing I remember, I was maybe 300 feet away, standing in the sand dunes, and my father was shaking me, being like, Richard, you need to start talking. What is happening? It's a weird place. Anyway, so we're staying there. The lighthouse hasn't worked for 100 years. It's the oldest lighthouse in New Zealand. It never worked very well, and there's a lot of shipwrecks around there, which is another cool thing about this place, is that every time the wind would move the sand dunes, it would uncover other shipwrecks that we could explore. So I wake up in the night and the light is on, and I'm like, well, that's odd. So I go up the stairs to see what's going on. I look out, and across the beach and like coming up out of the water where the light is hitting, there are all of these like ghosts, basically. All these people are crawling out of the water and they're all screaming, why did you turn the light out? And I'm was
shaking.
so excited. So I ran downstairs to go and meet all of my new friends. And I get outside and they're all gone. And like the light's off. Once I'm outside the lighthouse, the light is off. I can't see anything. It's all gone. And there's a bunch of other spooky things that happened at this place and still continue to happen at this place, even though it's now a little more like, there's a cafe. But I don't want to give away too many of them because I'm going to be writing this series for possibly decades, given how many creepy stories there are.
Yay!
But yeah, so that's kind of where it all comes from. And you know, I think that, you know, there are two kinds of kids in the world: the kind of kids who are like delighted by adventure, and the kind of kids who want to stay home and be bored. I mean, right now we're all at home being bored, but you can definitely find adventure still.
Absolutely. Like
right
marble racing, which is what we were talking about before this got started. But what I love is you talked about you talked about these two different types of kids, and speaking of kids, this group of kids that you created with Dash, Lily, Eleanor, and Andy, there's such a great diverse group of kids that really complement each other very well, even though they come from obviously very different backgrounds. Not all of them have met each other before. How did you come up with these characters, and how did you decide, you know, what do you think each of them brings to the book? Excuse me, that's what I meant.
I like to, I mean, I'll be honest, Dash is pretty closely based on me. He's a more cowardly version of me to a degree, because he is scared of ghosts. But he is the kid who doesn't want to be there. And so like, I know how to write that. I know how to write the kid who doesn't feel like, he doesn't like his family much and doesn't want to be around them, is trying to make the best of it, but it's kind of a drag to have to be stuck somewhere like this. And I'm not super outdoorsy. I don't know if you could have magically guessed that. But so
no judgment.
I always dreaded going to this place, because like, apart from the haunted stuff, and like the more haunted stuff I found and the more spooky stuff I found, the cooler it became. But like the actual idea of like, yeah, I know, but and now we have to go swimming, or now we have to go and like get in a boat, or now we have to go on a long hike somewhere to get a cell signal because my stepmother needs to call someone about makeup. That's an example from the book, not necessarily my stepmother. But that kind of, I think all kids experience this, that it doesn't matter who you like, who you hate, who you don't care about. The second you're stuck somewhere, they're your best friend. Like the friends you make when you're on a family vacation that are just the kids in the next tent over at a campground. Now,
Yeah.
either they're going to become your enemies and you're going to fight them to the death and you're going to bury them in the sand. Not saying that happened, that may be very specific. They tried to smash our sandcastle, which we spent a week building.
That's not fair. Not okay.
Or they're going to become your absolute best friends, and you'll never see them again. You'll probably forget their names, but like that. And it's the same as like if you hate a kid at school, but then on the weekends you're in the same reading group or you're in the same Lego building club or whatever.
Right.
The fact that you know them from somewhere else immediately makes them your like one true pairing for that weekend event. And so I think like what I was able to do then is go, okay, if Dash is here, this is who he is. Who are the people who he would not want to hang out with any other time? Because I don't have to go through all of their rigmarole of making them friends. It's just like they're cousins, you understand them, boom. And they started off way weirder than they were. They were like the two of them kind of spoke in unison, and they're creepy and like very like washed out looking. And I realized that they were becoming the scariest thing in the book.
Oh no, we don't need the Shining twins in there. No, thank you.
Yeah, they had like a real Village of the Damned, but like the Christopher Reeve remake, not the good one.
Yes.
And so I wanted to like change that up a bit because it's way better if everyone's just on the adventure and the cousins know more about the beach. That's the other thing, is that the main character should he can't know the most about the stuff that's going on there. So it's about levels of how much of an outsider you are. His family don't go to the beach as often. The cousins are there a lot. And then, so he is the inroad for the reader, but then also Lily she's not even part of the family. So she's got this extra level of feeling outside of it. And what you always notice when you bring a friend to if you have a friend sleep over or come to dinner at your house, your parents are always way nicer to them than they are to you. And you immediately feel like, why are you being nice to my friend? Why aren't you nice like this to me? Why do I have to get, good grades and not set things on fire? And you're not yelling at her about smashing your watch.
Darn.
As another,
random story. Well, that was just something that I really liked, and about just their camaraderie. And I love the way that you explain it, because I'm even thinking of instances in my own childhood where you're stuck, like even if it's just on a plane and you're like stuck next to another kid, or even, as an adult, sometimes you find these bonds in those confined situations. And so that's really cool that you were able to bring it to the story. And, I'm curious, you mentioned that there's a lot of other stories, and you mentioned writing this book into decades. So can you tease us for maybe what's in store for Dash and Lily and the crew? Any hints about what might be happening next?
I will say that in the first story, Dash is writing in a journal, and Dash is absolutely certain that he has not been at Black Sand Beach for 6 years. And it may come to pass that a journal from last year is discovered that definitely means he was there and doesn't remember it. So moving forward, it's about Dash trying to figure out who he was before whatever happened, and slowly uncovering all these terrifying things that happened last summer, because all of the spooky stuff at Black Sand Beach know Dash. They all know him. All of the monsters, they react to him as someone who they have seen before, and he doesn't know any of them. I'm sort of seeing it as a place where anything creepy can happen. And actually, we have I don't know if you know about this, we have a podcast called Tales from Black Sand Beach that started 3 weeks ago.
That's awesome.
And it's a journalist who had, I found a box full of dictaphone tapes with stories from a journalist who we don't know what happened to him. And they're all stories of spooky stuff he found a long time ago at Black Sand Beach.
Wow.
So it's all there's a lot of stuff unraveling already. But I'm stuck in a house and unable to leave or go anywhere. So horror stories are just kind of pouring out of my brain right now.
So what makes you want, because it sounds it is kind of like Welcome to Night Vale, but for middle grade. And I would love to know, what was your thought, because maybe it's because you were a kid when a lot of this was happening, but what made you want to write for middle grade readers specifically, and specifically in this spooky genre?
Well, as I say, I always liked being afraid when I was a kid. I remember like the first time I saw a picture of a Goosebumps book. It was in the Scholastic Book Order
Yes.
catalog. It was Welcome to Dead House, and I cut out the picture of the cover and kept it under my pillow until the book arrived. And like I was just so excited that there was going to be something scary, because scary stuff, by the way, is for kids is so often so weak. Like they'll be like, oh, here's a really scary story, but don't worry, there's no ghosts or monsters. It all turned out not to be real. I'm like, absolutely not. All monsters are real, all ghosts, because I don't want to wake up tomorrow and be 100% certain that I'm not going to become friends with a ghost today, you know?
That sounds boring.
It's what a terrible way to live your life. People who are like, I don't believe in ghosts. I'm like, that must be very sad for you. But as far as writing for middle grade, I think that I have written for like a lot of different age levels. I've done a lot of picture books. I've done a lot of comics for adults and teenagers and everything in between, you know? And there's this magical point where you're not old enough to be grumpy about the world, and you're not young enough to be scared easily. And that's middle grade. And some people are lucky and they get to hang on to that and read that stuff forever. But like, it's the time when things are either about to become possible or about to shut down, and you've got to grab onto the adventure while you have it. And so it's the most exciting age group to write for.
That's one of my favorite explanations I've heard of that ever. Thank you for that. That was really great. I'm curious, because as a storyteller and as an artist, you mentioned Goosebumps, but what are some other comics, books, stories in general that inspired you to become a storyteller in your own right?
It's interestingly, when I was a kid, I grew up in New Zealand, where there are now, I think, 4 comic stores. And back then there were even fewer in the entire country. So I literally didn't see a comic book for the first time until I was like 15 or 16 years old.
Wow.
And so I had seen them on TV. I'd seen like on Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo read comic books.
Yes.
And I sort of thought of it like, this must be a thing that used to exist and doesn't anymore. So I thought, if I made my own comic books, I'd probably be the only person in the entire world doing it, and I'd probably make millions of dollars.
That's so great.
So using that kid logic, I made my first comic book. There was a long, complicated story that I won't go into, where I blackmailed my school librarian to get free photocopying, and made copies of this little book and sold it at like school athletics days, because parents were there and I guess they felt sorry for me. And I was able to buy like a lot of Power Rangers and a lot of Ninja Turtles toys. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to make comics forever. And then as I got older, I became aware that comics did exist. But yeah, like the stories I was reading as a kid, you know, I love stupid stories told well. I love, like, you can take the dumbest idea in the world, and you know, there's a joke in The Simpsons where they say, coming up later on $1,000 movie, Colonel Dracula joins the Navy. And that's such a stupid premise, and it's going to be a terrible movie. But you could take a joke like that, and you could be like, okay, but what if we told a good story? What if we just developed Colonel Dracula as a real character and made you care about him? And all that comes down to is real human emotion. The reason you care about the kids in Black Sand Beach is not because there are ghosts there, but because they're friends and they like each other and you like them because of it. So it's all about like just, you know, giving humanity to things. You know, we are people. So if I hold up a pen and tell you this is my pen, his name is Steve, and then I break the pen in half, you feel sad because Steve just died.
My heart just yes.
Yeah, like it's really easy to you know, we see characters everywhere. I have a stuffed fox on top of my piano, and his name is Wolfie Wolf. And his name is Wolfie Wolf because my my friend who gave it to me, I took her office from her, and she's been very jealous about it ever since. And I became really good friends with the guy who she shared the office with, whose name was Paul Wolfe, who's also my science advisor on all these books. So when she gave me a stuffed fox from her new office, I was like, I'm going to name him Wolfie Wolf after Paul Wolfe, because he's another thing named Wolf that I got from your office, because I always get the best things from her offices. Now, I have no one to talk to, and I haven't seen a real person for 45 days. So I've started talking to Wolfie, because I can do that because he's there and he's smiling and he looks real happy. I have a bunch of lambs shaped like monkeys. I say good morning to them every day because we can make anything. We can put character onto anything.
That's cool.
I feel like I got really off the question and I can't really even remember how to circle back to it.
That's okay. I can move back on. Do you have any more specific titles that you want to mention about that inspired you? Look, he's right there. I love it. But you're right. It's true. Like, even as adults, we come up with things. I think about, I have a succulent. I don't take care of things very well, including myself, but I have a succulent that lives in a dinosaur plant. Like and it's not a plant, but the pot is in the shape of a dinosaur, and he's Ned, and he lives in our kitchen, and it's Ned, and we talk to him all the time. So even as adults, we do that too, but I can only imagine for kids how relatable that is too, of being able to characterize things.
We all have imaginary friends. We all have a teddy bear or a stuffed dinosaur or a plastic skeleton who's our best friend. Yep. And that feeling never goes away. I blame Toy Story for a lot of people feeling very guilty and never throwing out toys.
Right.
There's such a power. Like, after you see that movie, I saw that movie came out when I was 8 years old, and I went home and I took a toy off my shelf and I broke it in half and I threw it in the trash, just so that film would have no power over me.
None.
But no, and yeah, so specific things that like inspired me were things like scary stories. There was a book called 13 Tales to Tell After Midnight, which was all short ghost stories.
Yes.
I've never seen a copy of it ever again. I'm hoping that my mother can find it in her garage, so I'd really like to read one of the stories in there again to see if it still makes me have nightmares. And shows about weird places. Erie, Indiana, if you can track that down, it will terrify you. It's really outdated now, but like there's just this bit in the opening titles where it pans past a milk carton and there's a picture of a missing kid on it. And I mean, I know that probably isn't a real thing anymore, but everyone knows that missing kids are on milk cartons, or they used to be. But it says, when children go missing in Erie, they stay missing, and the kid's picture fades away. And that's so scary.
That's terrifying.
I'm going to have nightmares tonight because I've thought about that.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that for 30 years. Scary stories stay with you. That's why I love them.
So you mentioned a little bit about your process, and I'd love to, and at the end of the book, actually, there's this great section that you have that explains how to make a comic. And I'm curious if there's any piece of advice that you didn't get to include in that section that maybe you want to share now.
I mean, the section I can bring this up immediately because it's right in front of me.
I'm also showing off that I did my homework.
You read all the way.
It's a really great section.
Thank you. So the idea is it shows all the different steps for putting together a single comic page. So from pencils to adding the text to adding the inks and the color. And then I don't ever show the finished page on here because it's in the book and you can flip through and find what the real one looks like. But like the thing about comics, and I think one of the reasons I think they are the best medium in the whole wide world, is that you can make them with anything. Like a comic is just the process of putting one picture after another and putting some words with it. And all you need is a pen and paper. Like I show the way that I make it. But the first comic I made was drawn with a felt tip pen on random scraps of paper. And I spent a really long time doing the lettering because it was about an invisible ghost. So the pictures weren't super detailed.
Fair.
You know, if you want to make a comic with a bunch of photos, I made a comic the other day by taking screen grabs of a bunch of masterclass things where everyone was like, Judy Bloom teaches writing, R.L. Stein teaches writing, someone else, all these people teach writing, and it said, Neil Gaiman teaches the art of storytelling, and it was just me going, and That's a great punchline. And I did it by just doing screen grabs of ads on my Facebook thing. There's this thing that when you study film, you learn about it called the Kuleshov Effect, where if you whatever you show one thing after another is what gives meaning to the image before it. So if you show a picture of a man staring ahead, looking blankly, and then you show a picture of a pie, people will say, "What did the man look like?" And people will say, "He looked hungry," and he didn't. It's just that by putting those two things together, you made a story. Comics happen in the space between the images. That's where our imagination tells the story for us. And that's the coolest thing in the world. With comics, you can control time. Like, I can slow down how you read my comic by having the page be more detailed or have smaller panels. There's no other medium that can do that. They can just, like, a film happens the way it happens. A book, you read through, there's the words and you can stop and think about the words, but there's not extra detail behind it. You can't peel back the words and look for new ones.
Right.
That would be a very thick and annoying book.
That would suck.
What's that book? What's that book where if you read it, depending which edition you have and the different color of some of the text, it tells a different mystery? House of Leaves.
I don't know. I wish I did now.
It's called House of Leaves, and
that's it. Mark. I have the book. It is in my other bedroom. It's in my other library room.
And depending which version of it you have, some of the words are in red, some of them are in green and things, and it changes how the story is actually told.
Yes.
And I think that's fascinating, but like that is only special because one person did it. Mm-hmm. If every book did that, who cares?
It wouldn't work anymore.
But a comic, like, I know that if I have a character standing in a big empty space and they're saying, you know, "Oh no, my balloon's on fire," then you read that, you go, "Oh, my balloon's on fire, done." But if I draw every cobblestone of the street they're standing on and incredibly detailed buildings around them and say, "Oh no, my balloon's on fire," you're going to stand and stop and look at that panel for probably 15 seconds because there's a lot to take in. And I want you to take that in because, like, this person's balloon is on fire. That's a major event in the story of Sally and the Flammable Balloon. Coming soon.
I love how you just pulled that out of nowhere. That was great.
Yeah, so my advice is if you have any desire to at all, just make comics and make them every single day and just draw more and more and more. And then, you'll get good at it or you'll get bored with it, and really those are the only two options. You either get good or get bored.
I kind of love that. That's where we'll end like our conversation and go to the audience questions, because I think there's just some really great nuggets of wisdom, so to speak, to kind of think on in there, that you either get good or you get bored. And I love that because it helps you find what your niche is and what you want to do. And that's a really great thing to move on to some of these lighter questions that I've got. So if you have any questions for Richard here, feel free to type them in the comments as you're watching. I'll be happy to read them off. We did get some questions from our Instagram and other social media channels that we had, and one of which was a really simple one that I'm anxious to hear about, but they asked TV shows or movies?
TV shows.
Nice.
Like,
why? Because
a TV show, I like a big, sprawling, messy story. Mm-hmm. I actually like, and also I'm a workaholic, and if I watch a movie, it's meant to be watched, and I will watch it, and I won't get any work done. I can leave a TV show. If I find a TV show that is run for 9 seasons, and it doesn't matter how bad it is, if it's run for long enough, I'll be like, that's what's happening in my background for a week, and I will get amazing amounts of work done while learning all about the town of Tree Hill and their high school basketball problems.
Great.
Another random example there.
That's okay. I think it's awesome. They want to know what are you reading right now?
I just finished Universal Harvester by John Darnielle, which was one of the spookiest and tensest books I've read for a really long time, up until the ending, and then it's like, I'm fine. But in terms, like, when I'm able to leave the house, I have a tendency to lose books. So I have probably 150 books that I have read 3/4 of and lost. And if this book had been one of those, it would have been one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life. But because I got to the end of it, I'm like, oh, fine.
I want that comic. Can we have that series of Richard's library of lost books, and it's all the books that you've lost that like didn't get finished and like where they end up? That'd be fun.
I used to
or it's all the ghosts in your life. It's all your ghost friends stealing them.
I like to think that I could be like, by not reading the end of books, I can make up my own endings, and I think I probably have in my mind made up a lot of endings to things, and I genuinely believe that's how they end now. I never saw the ending of It's a Wonderful Life for a really long time. I'd
Sorry,
seen it.
I dislike that movie so much.
What?
I don't like that movie.
Terrible. Bedford Falls is so much better without George Bailey.
Yeah. We're like, we have to talk. Not now, but we'll talk about your book and answer audience questions. But yes, I feel very similarly.
It is Christmas Eve. It is late, and the librarian is just closing up. That belies an incredible infrastructure and support of literature in this town.
Oh, this is great. It makes me happy. Well, so another similar question is like, what media or art are you consuming right now during this quarantine?
I'm watching. When I pause to eat food, I'm watching the Scooby-Doo Mysteries Incorporated series.
Yes.
So good. It's like long form Scooby-Doo mysteries. It's fantastic. And I'm really like, I know there's only 2 seasons of it before it got canceled, so I'm watching like 1 episode a day and really just like taking that pretty easy. I have been rewatching The Simpsons from the beginning because I haven't seen it for maybe a decade, and I'm almost up to the point where it stops being good. So I will give up on that soon. And I'm listening to a lot of music. My favorite new thing, which is like, it's probably too soon to say, but I think it might be like the best album of the century, is Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters.
Okay, I need to listen to this now.
It just came out last week, and
Great.
And I'm also, I collect Courtney Love and Hole bootlegs, and so I'm working my way through about 200 different concerts from the 90s.
Great. I love it. So another question from our audience is, what fun and funky young adult or middle grade series do you think that Black Sand Beach is akin to?
That's a tough one, because I think there are things that, like, if you like a certain thing, you'll probably like this. I think if you enjoyed The Last Airbender TV series and Legend of Korra, the sprawling structure of that, like, and the kind of humor in that, I think is very similar to what I'm doing. I think if you like Gravity Falls but didn't find it scary enough, then Black Sand Beach is for you. If you
I always thought about, like, and I talked about this before, but like Lumberjanes in my head, Lumberjanes isn't scary, but like somebody who wants something extra, like you talked about Gravity Falls being a little bit extra, because I love the idea of this group of kids going and having to experience the supernatural, and how they handle it, you know. That's what I saw in it, because it really is about the friendship, you know, and that's something that, I mean, horror is not my genre, for lack of a better word. I'm much more about like my English Gothic horror, but what I loved about this book was the friendship and the way that they talk to each other. And even though, you know, Andy's pulling eggs out of his pocket, you still find that so endearing. I'm not kidding, guys. Literally fried eggs out of his pocket. This child.
To be fair, they are raw eggs, and then they cook them.
Yes.
He does. I love.
He does. He pulls the raw eggs out, then they get them in the fireplace. Yes.
There's something so strange about there. Everyone knows a kid like this. A kid who's just gooey. Like, they eat their scabs. you know that their pockets are filled with boogers, but you also know that, like, in a pinch, they're gonna have something weird on them, and they're not gonna think it's weird that they can have put a bunch of eggs in their pockets.
Yes. And
And
Andy does that very thing with the eggs and with some other items too. And I also love that you called him a goober, because that's something that that word we use in my family a lot. But it really is about friendship with a really awesome side of spooky that comes with it. That's what I think of when I would be recommending it to people when we get back out of quarantine, and I can hand it to a third grader and be like, you will enjoy this, I promise.
yes, yeah, I think I haven't yet met anyone who hasn't enjoyed it, which is a very, like, actually we got it. This is the nicest thing I've ever heard. We had, when we were first putting the podcast together, we've recorded the whole first season, because there's a recording studio in the back half of my house.
Nice.
So we've done all of it already. But the first episode, we just put it together. We sent it out to some people to listen to. And there was this group of 5 siblings, aged 9 to 16. Okay. And they all crowded around their dad's cell phone and lay on the floor listening to the first episode. And the second oldest and the second youngest of the 5 both got so scared they had to run away. The second oldest kicked the middle child in the face as she was getting up, causing the middle child's mouth to start bleeding. And the middle child just held her hand over her mouth and stayed there bleeding because she was just so engaged by the story.
Oh my gosh. I kind of simultaneously love and find that horrible.
And the best part was, it's a story about a ghost girl who pours blood in your mouth when you're asleep.
There you go. Even better.
You should never sleep on your back.
Oh my gosh.
You might wake up choking on someone else's blood.
There you go. So someone else wanted to know, how do you write children's characters that are likely to become young activists and adventurers?
I think I have a pretty strong moral compass. I think that there are, the world's on fire right now. And I think that the best weapon we have is kindness and compassion. And I think that there are, like, I'm not someone, I don't have a lot of power. I can't do a lot of stuff to make the world better. I can be nice to people. I can give people exciting stories. I can help people when and where, they cross my path. But if I'm going to write characters, they are going to be powerful and inspiring. They're going to be the people who you look at and you're like, I'm not at all surprised that they became, they're going to be something special. People are always talking about how it's sort of silly that in stories, of course, the main characters become, king of the world, saved outer space, fought dragons, whatever. Of course it is, because we don't tell stories about people who don't. Right. No one wants to read a story about, like, globby-faced Theo and his adventures sitting at home. They want to read stories about Cool Kid Richard, who goes out and fights. Not Cool Kid Richard. Let's use a different name. Cool
Kid Dash.
Yeah. To be fair, I was thinking of Richard, the main character from Blastosaurus, who coincidentally has my birthday.
That's fine. Well, but I think that, I think a lot of young kids need that now, and I think they needed it in the past. And so having characters that they can relate to and see themselves in on a multitude of levels, and then also find inspiration in, is really important. Yeah. The last question that we have here is, what do you hope kids take away from Black Sand Beach?
Nightmares.
Yes.
Yep. I want kids to be scared. I loved being scared when I was a kid. I want kids to think about these stories. Like, I don't want to give away too much from book 2, but I just finished the art on book 2 recently. And
congratulations.
There's a short story in it that is it's called Eat the World. And this was actually meant to come out. Free Comic Book Day was meant to be tomorrow. And Eat the World was the Black Sand Beach story that was in Free Comic Book Day. So technically, I'm going to tell everyone about it a day early, even though no one can get it. It's about, there's a family who live down the street at Black Sand Beach called the Molchocks. And they are...
I have so many questions about them.
They're clearly monsters. There's something really wrong about them, and everyone knows to just be afraid of them, stay away from them if they come near you. And they're genuinely pretty scary. I mean, you've read the book, you know the scene in
I know.
when they're hiding from them. Who is in that sack? But there's one of the Molchucks is quiet and normal. And the thing about monsters is when we think about monsters, we think about like big scary things who want to eat us. And sure, that's true. But if they eat all of us, then there's no one left for them to eat. If vampires turn us all into vampires, there's no blood left to drink.
Yes.
Monsters, like, we are monsters ourselves. We want to keep the world, you know, the scary thing is someone who wants the same stuff as you, but also wants to eat your brains. So Chuck Molchuk has made a deal with a much scarier monster, a giant beast from beneath the sea, that every Thursday night, he will go down to the cave underneath the beach and feed this monster 1 jar of mayonnaise in exchange for the monster not coming ashore and not eating the world for another week. And the thing that scares Chuck Molchuk is that he's running out of mayonnaise. And I want, like, here's the thing. Black Sand Beach all happens in one summer. It's 12 weeks. And you see on that last page that he has 13 jars left. We'll get to know.
So see, now if that didn't make you want to read the series, I don't know what is. And we just thoroughly encourage you guys to go on tatteredcover.com and get yourself a copy of Black Sand Beach, Are You Afraid of the Light by Richard Fairgray. Richard, I cannot thank you enough. This was entertaining, fun, spooky.
Thank you. Can I ask, do you guys have the hardcover and the softcover, or just the softcover?
We do. We have both available for order.
I got to show you everyone then, because you won't be able to see this on the internet. So this is the cool thing about the hardcover. By the way, I have the only signed copy. To Richard, keep working at it, and one day you may have a book as nice as this one. XOXO, Richard Fairgray.
Hey, there you go.
But underneath the jacket, you get
the journal.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, you really need to go order yourself a copy right now. Order it for your favorite young child who is excited. Even as an adult, I found it spooky and creepy, and Richard, this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you'll stay on, I just want to quickly say to everyone who's still watching, once again, you can order Black Sand Beach from tatteredcover.com. Thank you guys for joining us on your Friday evening. And we have more events coming up. Sign up for our email newsletter to get those. You can always check them out on our website and our social media. We've got a whole slew of middle grade authors in June. Everybody from we've got Avi on the books and a lot of other really great authors that you should check out that we'll be announcing really soon. So thank you guys again for joining us. Stay safe, wash your hands, keep reading. Can I say one thing? Yes.
As it was mentioned earlier, I have the most underappreciated Twitter account in the entire universe.
Yes.
At Blastosaurus on Twitter, where I make such great jokes as, if Lance Armstrong really wanted to intimidate people, he would have changed his name to Lance Legstrong. Sorry.
And that's the kind of puns you're going to get in Black Sand Beach.
But also and please listen to our podcast, Tales from Black Sand Beach. It's available everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Please plug away. I'm excited to listen to the podcast now because I'm a podcast fiend. I listen to them more than I should. So thank you guys again for joining us. Once again, we hope you all are staying safe and continue reading. Bye, everybody. Hold on. Let me end this.